Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the Mobileye GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship from the beautiful Hungaroring. Paul Jeffrey up in the commentary box with you today, and alongside me, broadcasting legend, voice of many a bit of drama, Mr. David Addison. David, good evening to you, sir.
Paul, it's good to be back, it's good to be at the Hungaroring, and it is good to be looking at what promises to be yet another absolutely thrilling hour of GT racing. Effectively two races in one, with the Pro Class and the Silver Class battles. Dan McCormack having been a real star in that Pro category, and Dominic Blyer absolutely dominating the Silvers. Unbeaten 3 out of 3. So one question is anyone going to topple him tonight? But take the Pro Class first. That's a really competitive entry as well, isn't it?
It really is. We've got an incredible array of names that you'll be very familiar with from top-level esport racing. James Baldwin, of course, has dallianced with esports and real-world racing. Then we've got drivers the likes of Arta Camera for our BMW team BS Competizione. Very, very fast driver. Needs a good result today. Dan McCormack, as you say, David, is our championship leader in the McLaren 720S GT3. Gianfranco Gioli, another driver for Lamborghini Esports that should be at the sharp end of the grid, I'm absolutely sure. And young Robbie Stapleford, we talk about him a lot in this championship for BMW G2 Esports, but one of the rising stars of virtual motorsport, and another name that will always be guaranteed at the sharp end of the grid. And then running down the final few drivers, a couple of privateer entries as well. Kieran Pendergrass there running for the Honda NSX Evo. Says privateer there, but actually he has moved over now into a works team, so it'll be interesting to see how Pendergrass gets on in his new environment, Mr. Ellison.
Yes, because in a sense you wonder whether it's going to be that big a change, but perhaps even though a sim car is a sim car, it's the backup from the team that makes the difference, doesn't it? So it's not quite the same as having to adapt to a new team in the real world, but it's not far off, and it's having that extra pair of eyes, having a bit more information in your ear, I think that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, it's the support. Oh, sorry, David, go on.
After you.
No, say it's the support network as well, isn't it? But I'll just hand over to you now quickly for the championship standings.
Because if you have a look at Silver, this is where the Dominic Blyer domination continues. Not only 3 wins, but also 3 pole positions to go with it. And he's very nearly got his hand on that trophy already. Robbie Stapleford is second, Fabian Piffet third. Fifth in that championship, Igor Orodnikov, who's actually got points in both Silver and Pro. The Silver battle really is who's going to be second. And Dominic Blyer has done such a good job. You kind of assume that he's now a pro, because certainly in the most recent rounds that we've been looking at, he has been giving the pro drivers a very hard time indeed. Dan McCormack, though, does lead in pro. David Tonitza second, and he's only 3 points up on Tobias Groenewald. In terms of race wins, 2 for Dan McCormack and 1 for the man that's fourth, James Baldwin. And we know how good he is, as you've made the point, Paul. He's done real world as well as sim racing, and so he's another one that could well take a win tonight, and actually needs to, bearing in mind there's only one more race after this.
Yep, this is the penultimate round of the season. We go to Monza on August the 3rd for the final race, and there's the championship these drivers are obviously fighting for, to finish as high as they possibly can and get their share of the prize money. But SRO Esports is a championship, a long-running esport campaign, and no doubt will be back again next season. So the better you can do this year, the more you can learn, the more experience you can get, the more momentum behind you, David. It's absolutely critical for the future endeavours, as well as what's happening in front of us in the here and now.
Indeed, and it's interesting, isn't it, that, I mean, you've touched on some of the names that we're familiar with. Others seem to have been around for 3 seasons, effectively, in SRO Esports racing, but are now further up the grid, further up the championship table than they were back in 2020, when this whole SRO Esports series really burst into life. So yeah, they've made big strides forward, and that's good to see.
It is. It's a virtual career, basically, isn't it? Just like in real life motorsport, you earn your dues, you learn, you race with maybe less experienced, less established teams, and as your performances increase, as the perceived value that you bring to an organisation rises with week in, week out delivering the goods on track, not just in SRO, but in the wealth of different championships that these drivers participate in on different platforms, you kind of uplift yourself in people's eyes, and then you get the plum drives, you get the plum opportunities, and then you can race for the big prizes and the big prize pools that come with it. And it's actually quite fascinating. It's exactly like real life, but in virtual form.
This is true, and the Hungaroring circuit is one at which overtaking is never really that easy, so the importance of qualifying can't be overstated. Qualifying has come to an end, and it's going to be a Porsche and Ferrari front row, two great GT brands, with the best time being done in the session by Jordan Grant-Smith with the Race Anywhere SimSport Porsche, and David Tonizza second fastest in the Ferrari. So that is going to be the front row of the grid. You look down there at the last corner, that last long right that loops you onto the pit straight. But to find out more about the Hungaroring, let's have a look at the BMW Track Genius with Bruno Spengler.
Hi, I'm Bruno Spengler, BMW M Works driver. I'm your track genius for today's race. Today I'm going to show you around the super technical track Budapest. Let's go. Next corner is a downhill left-hander off camber. So the car is always a bit tricky on entry, a bit nervous. Mid corner is understeer, it's a long corner, you got to place the car well to be able to do this corner flat here. As it's very important because after it's an uphill straight, so you have to do this corner flat. This corner here, a lot of curb on the inside, then place the car as quick as you can to the left to be able to hit your apex here all the way on the inside because the grip is there. Very bumpy at mid corner to exit. Here chicane, your minimum speed early on the gas to lift the front of the car to be able to have a stable car on the power. Last corner very tricky on entry, the car always wants to step out as it's a long loaded corner, early on the gas. And here we are back on the start and finish straight of Budapest. So guys, I hope you're ready, because now it's your turn. See you next time.
Superb stuff there. Great insights of the Hungaroring track from Bruno Spengler. So big thanks to him and to BMW for putting that together for us and giving us a little look at this Hungaroring circuit. And it's often criticised, David, as being a very tight, twisted technical track. But more often than not, somehow, this layout just produces great racing. And in GT3 cars, in a field that's as competitive and tightly packed as this, I dare say we're going to have another one of those rather spectacular hours of motorsport ahead of us.
I think you're right, and I think if you're the cork in the bottle, you're going to really influence the race. It goes to reason, really, that you are going to get in the way of people. But those drivers that need to make progress are going to have to pick their moments. The first corner, that hairpin at the end of the pit straight when you then drop downhill, that's one of the overtaking opportunities, but there aren't that many. If you manage to make your rival get into strife, you force an error out of him heading into turn 3, because effectively it's turn 1 and then a kink and then the left at turn 3 as you look at it there going under the bridge. That's another opportunity, but after that you're really struggling to do it, and some of it's going to be on pure pace, but really the key zone is over the start and finish area down towards the first hairpin. But in an hour-long race, got to look after equipment, look after tyres, look after brakes around here, and that could well give us one or two shuffles of the order towards the end.
Let's be perfectly honest, our drivers are not afraid to get their elbows out in this championship, so do expect touring car-esque rubbing and racing, and this strategy is well involved in this one. The drivers have to go down for a mandatory pit stop over the course of the 1 hour race, and we've seen that before, David, that it's so important to pick your spot perfectly. But before we go more into that one, I want to talk to you very quickly about the brand new Lamborghini Esports series that is about to kick off, and let's have a quick look at what that is all about.
So good to hear more about Lamborghini's new championship, and the best placed of the Lamborghini Works drivers for Automobili Lamborghini Esports is Jordan Sherratt. He lines up 6th on the grid. Let's have a little stroll down. Jordan Grant-Smith and David Tonitza then are at the front of the grid. Amir Hosseini lines up on the 2nd row with Niels Naujoks for company, and then on the 3rd row Michael Tauscher and then Jordan Sherratt. Robbie Stapleford in the BMW fastest in the silver class. He's got Luca Lossio alongside him. Kieran Prendergast and Kamil Pawlowski come next, ahead of number 4 of Andrea Capoccia and Nicholas Hauben in number 22. Then you get to Arthur Camara, and only 14th in the Bentley is Dare McCormack, but only 15th is James Baldwin in number 1. Then there's Eamon Murphy, 16th on the grid, ahead of Nico Wisniewski, and then you get Tinko van der Velde with his Bentley 18th. 19th, Tobias Grunewald ahead of Mike Nobel. Then, number 9, Dennis Schoeniger and Dominic Blyer, a long, long way back, 22nd, just ahead of Kevin Ciclari. Keep going down that grid, and you'll see one or two more of the names to pick out, with perhaps, in one or two cases, a bit of work to do, because after Ciclari, there is Mikhail Yonkers. Igor Irodnikov is only 25th. 26th on the grid, Tommy Razer, who's another of the silvers, ahead of then another of the Bentleys, which is that in the hands of Mateusz Tiszkiewicz, the Triton racing car, and right towards the very, very back of the grid, aboard number 113, is Jesse Kauppinen, who drives the AMR V8 Vantage Aston Martin for the Griphax engineering team, and he is going to round out the grid just after Giuseppe Montalbano's Bentley that is there as well. So that then is the bulk of the grid. They make the run now onto this formation lap. Last opportunity to get a little bit of warmth into the tyres, and what are we looking at? 6:45, give or take, local time for a race start, which means that temperatures are going to be dropping over the course of the race, and it could be a rather different feel to the track surface by the very end.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot for our drivers to deal with, but David, just look at that one. The drivers are already coming down to basically the end of the first sector, whilst the rear of the grid is still setting off. 39 cars on the grid today. Fabulous to see this many cars, this many marks, this many teams taking part, but it just goes to show, doesn't it, that if you get caught up in traffic, either through pit stop strategy or through the fact that your car's naturally quicker and you're coming up to slower vehicles, that can have a real impact on your prospects in this race. You've mentioned at the top of the show, passing is relatively difficult unless you've got some assistance from the car that you're trying to get your way past. Get caught up for 2 or 3 corners, everybody's that quick here in SRO Esports. That could be the big difference between a good result and an absolute disaster.
Dominic Blyer, 22nd on the grid. It's the first time he's not taken pole in class. We've got one of the Ferraris that's stationary just briefly there. It's the first time he's not had a class pole position, and therefore he really has got a lot of work to do. Now, Kamil Pawlowski being shown as going to the pit lane. That sounds like a drama, does it not, for the car that would have been starting 10th on the grid, number 14, Kamil Pawlowski. So is there a question mark over his participation in the race, Paul? What do we think?
Yeah, that's a real problem actually, Pawlowski. Maybe that's a glitch for the game. I'm just looking down the running order to see if I can still see the car on the racetrack. We saw a few cars struggling to get away, and there is Camille's car now on pit road. So whether that's a technical issue or whether that's a problem with the hardware at home, I don't know, but worst possible start to the day for Pawlowski.
Absolutely. After a decent top 10 qualifying, he's another of the pros. These temperatures we're talking about dropping over the course of the hour, it might therefore mean that graining tyres become a factor late on in the race. So keep an eye on that as the field then turns its way now round the back of the paddock and heading up towards the start of the race itself in a moment. Jordan Grant-Smith there then makes that run up towards the final right. You see the pit-in lane just on his inside, but is it going to be Porsche or is it going to be Ferrari that grabs the advantage on the way then now up towards turn 1? On the inside line is Jordan Grant-Smith. You can see him at work then as the cars turn through the hairpin, ready to accelerate away. When the lights change, we are going to be in business for round 4 of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship. It's an hour, it's at Hungary, and it is go, because the cars now accelerate up towards the line. Green flag, green lights, Green car from pole grabs the advantage. Jordan Grant-Smith then tries to get the drop on everybody else. Covers off the inside line all the way down to turn 1. But he's under attack. The Ferrari's right up behind him. And there's contact. The BMW of Nils Naujoks gets turned around. Tonitza has gone sideways and he's assaulted as well by 3, 4, 5 cars. So, typical pinch point, turn 1. There's more mayhem breaking out in the background. And from the pit lane, by the look of it, Pawlowski has just joined in. But what is going on here? There are cars everywhere, Paul.
This is incredible scenes of the Hungaroring, massively, what's the polite way of putting it? Not that impressive, the start from our drivers, but the big takeaway, David, championship challenger, David Tonitza, contact into T1, then that forced him to collect Nils Naujoks, who we're looking at now, dropped all the way down the running order. So 2 of our big names realistically taken out of contention right at the very, very start. And once this field shakes itself out, there's Dan McCormack as well. So what's happening to McCormack? That is massive damage, David, on the Bentley Continental. Is this McCormack's day done?
It could well be, and that could have a really important part to play within the championship, because if the damage is so bad that he can't even limp it back yet, he has come to the pit lane straight away. So Dan McCormack, now there you go, that underlines one of the reasons that qualifying is so important, because he wasn't really up at the pointy end of the grid. He was way back, 12th, 14th on the grid, so it gave him more work to do. You're in jeopardy with cars all around you, and basically it has bitten him on the first lap of the race.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens when you're in the middle of the pack. You get wrapped up in somebody else's incident. It's incredibly difficult to stay out of the way when cars are pinging left, right, centre. Like you say, multiple contacts, multiple times with different drivers. And the upshot is that has really changed the complexion of this race. We've got drivers at the sharp end that maybe you wouldn't have expected to be quite so far up. But one name I do want to draw our attention to, David, James Baldwin has threaded the needle at his 7th position. That is a very nice start indeed for Baldwin.
It is indeed, and in contrast, Nils Naujoks, after being tapped into that spin, is down in 23rd. We need to keep an eye also on to David Tonitza and also Kamil Pawlowski, because one started from the pit and is in a hurry. That's Pawlowski, and Tonitza was hit by all and by sundry and has got work to do there. But James Baldwin then now sets off in pursuit of the Honda. Kieran Prendergast just up ahead of him. Amir Hosseini, that we've not really seen too much of, startling result-wise in the championship this year. He's second. Jordan Grant-Smith has turned around his season as well, because he's the man that leads the way, and yet he is only 19th in the standings. He's only got 2 points to his name. He's only scored in 1 of 3 rounds, and here he is leading as James Baldwin hustles on in 7th place.
Yep, so let's have a quick look at where our drivers at the sharp end of the championship are running. Currently, at this moment in time, Tobias Groenewold's got a good opportunity ahead of him. Running 12th on track, plenty of racing still to do. But he's 3rd in the championship standings, 3 points away from David Tonitza. Tonitza running all the way down in 33rd position. So here is Tobias Groenewold that we're looking now. Big opportunity to score some big points. Yes, maybe it's a big ask getting contention for the championship, but if we get this car up onto the podium, Tobias Groenewold's going to be a name we're talking about a lot at Monza for the final round of the season in August.
I think we've talked also over the course of the races, haven't we, about consistency. It's a short championship, but you've got to get points in every race. And here is an example of drivers in strife giving away points, and it's going to have a real impact, no pun intended, on their championship hopes come the end of the hour. Jordan Grant-Smith, in the meantime, still leads from Amir Hosseini, and then in 3rd place, number 91, Mikhail Tauschner, in the next of the Porsches, the Unicorns of Love car. There is Mikhail Tauscher hard at work. He's got Luca Lossio up behind him. So, you know, this is the best we've seen out of Grant-Smith, out of Hosseini, out of Tauscher, out of Lossio, out of Robbie Stapleford all season. And right now Stapleford, running 5th, leads in silver, and he's getting onto the back of Luca Lossio. So the leading silver car, the BMW of Robbie Stapleford, is getting away from Kieran Prendergast in class, and he's giving the pros a tough time.
Yeah, we know car and driver are very competitive, so Stapleford will fancy his chances not only of winning the silver class, but of really making a big impact into the overall race results in this one as well. Michael Tauscher struggling a little bit in that Porsche as the car gets up to temperature, the tyres get up to temperature, of course, running at its absolute heaviest at this stage in the race. We know the Porsche is a unique beast to drive, can be very quick if you unlock that pace, but just in these early stages of the race, it's a bit more lively than those cars around him. So Lazio and Stapleford will both fancy the chances of trying to put Tauscher under pressure, because at this moment in time, if you could clear Michael Tauscher very quickly, or conversely, Tauscher can find some lap time, you're still in the conversation for race victory or race lead.
Indeed, and you've got to get on with that before Jordan Grant-Smith turns on his tyres and gets away from the McLaren in second place of Amir Hosseini, because if he gets away up the road and you're still in traffic, then life becomes even more difficult. Lossio there is all over the back of Tauscher like a rash, isn't he, as they get down towards turn one. Now, what about James Baldwin? Because as you look back from Kieran Prendergast's Honda, he's still crawling all over the back of him, and he's now bringing into the mix as well Jordan Sherratt in the Automobili Lamborghini Esports team entry. The Huracan getting up onto the tail of the McLaren now.
Yeah, James Baldwin looking hungry for a result, but he's going to be cautious at this stage in the race. He'll recognise, he'll have been told by his team that his main rivals are very much out of contention at this early stage. So you don't want to put too much on the line this early in the race. Just a case of watching where your rivals are strong compared to you, seeing what kind of pace you've got in the car, where your comfort level is. And Baldwin, ever the professional, very experienced, will be making these mental calculations while he lines up the move. And Robbie Stapleford, the only calculation he's got needing to make at this moment is go like the wind, my son, and he's doing very much that in 5th position.
Yeah, Luca Lossio is the driver of the blue BMW, the Mobileye X Jean Alesi Esports Academy car, just up the road. Through there goes Robbie Stapleford in the BMW G2 Esports entry. Now, of course, Niels Naujoks, the BMW Team BS Plus Competition driver, tapped into a spin at the first corner. He has recovered. He is up to 21st overall, and he's still pounding on, trying to gain ground before the hour is up. Dominic Blyer, who normally wins the silver class anyway, he's kind of got an account there, so many wins as he had. He's only 4th in the category, tucked up behind Igor Ogorodnikov. He too has got work to do.
And interestingly, David, that David Tanitsa has lost a couple of additional positions down back at the grid, 38th, last of our running cars. Okay. So Tanitsa, obviously, from those multiple contacts he took in T1, is carrying significant damage. His last time was a 2-minute 9.099, so a good 15-20 seconds away from the ultimate pace. So obviously a mistake there as well, but Tanitsa, this is going from bad to worse. I think before too long we'll see that car pulling down pit road and saying good night for the evening.
You may well be right. And as far as the championship is concerned, Dan McCormack leads in pro. He's out. David Tonitza is dropping like the stone in the proverbial phrase. Tobias Grunewald, who is 3rd in the championship, is 12th in the race. James Baldwin 4th in the championship, 7th, striving to gain places. So it's going to make a really topsy-turvy order out of the championship. Niels Naujoks now has done the fastest lap of the race as he pushes on. But yeah, all the leading drivers within the standings, in the points battle that is, having a pretty awful race thus far. James Baldwin probably about the best.
Apparently, David, I can command eSport drivers with just my voice, because as we were saying that, David Tanitsa down pit road and out of the race. So really difficult day for the Ferrari eSport team. Currently, Kamil Pawlowski, we saw him, mystery reasons, in pit lane at race start. He's 26, so still recovering quite well, going very quickly actually, is Pawlowski. But yeah, it's not the day that the team were expecting, I think, when the checkered flag, when the green flag waved a few minutes ago.
It's not, but you know what? In a funny kind of way, it did Pawlowski a favour, didn't it? Because it got him out of the green, got him out of the strife. It all happened ahead of him. When he arrived on the scene at turn 1, they were all driving into each other, and he could pick his way through. And there he is now, getting up the order. So in a funny kind of way, it did him a sort of favour. Leaders go by with the gap now up to a 2nd, as again Lossio goes to the outside of Tauscher for 3rd place down towards turn 1. Still can't find a way through. Robbie Stapleford runs 5th. Prendergast is 6th. Baldwin 7th. There, Jordan Sherratt in 8th place in the Lamborghini. And more battles further down the order. Niels Naujoks has now done the fastest lap of the race, and he's just gone 20th there at the expense of Tommy Rozier. So Niels Naujoks still pushing on, still getting up the order.
Yeah, Naujoks unleashing some of the pace that we know there is in that BMW, but just going up to the Tauscher, Lazio, Stapleford kind of fight in 3rd, 4th and 5th. Tauscher, incredibly aggressive on his defence, and what that's doing, David, there you see, it's bringing basically the rest of the field onto the back of that Porsche. So Tauscher is almost doing himself an injustice by fighting to defend so hard. And I worry now for Michael Tauscher that one small mistake or a light amount of contact, you're not losing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to lose places in the double figures at this rate.
So there's that to keep an eye on as well, and on top of everything else, as there you look at Luca Lostio's BMW. Now, this battle pack, I would offer you, is getting a longer line, and now in the background, James Baldwin trying to make a move against Kieran Prendergast as they come then now up towards the chicane. Did he find a way through? No, he did not. Baldwin now looking for 6th, 7th and 8th, because you've got Kieran Prendergast behind this flotilla of BMWs. Kieran Prendergast in the Honda, keeping Baldwin at bay. James attacking and defending at the same time now. But look, this line is getting longer and longer and longer. Onto the pit straight they come. 3rd, Tauscher. 4th, Losio. Then you've got Stapleford, Prendergast, Baldwin, Sherratt, Halban, Capoccia. So it's at least all the way back to 11th place.
And as a driver, that is such a difficult position to find yourself in. You don't know whether you need to attack or to concentrate on your mirrors. And if you do attack, you've got to be 100% confident. As Losio now looks to the inside again, just trying to pressure Tauscher into braking a little bit late or missing his apex, because that's the best way to pass here at the Hungaroring. Force your rival into a mistake. Let them compromise themselves, and then you can go and take some advantage. And Losio's a wise enough driver to know throwing the car down the inside was unlikely to work, but as you say, because it's such a tight battle pack, it's going to be like NASCAR, isn't it? You get out on the wide line, you lose the draft, and then zoom, 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 everybody's on the way past.
Yeah, once Tauscher is forced offline, they're all going to come streaming past him. He is very much the cork in the bottle. Although he qualified 5th, he's running 3rd, so he's kind of in exalted company here, and the danger is that as soon as finally he makes that slip, he's going to go tumbling down the order. But right now, what he is also doing is giving Jordan Grant-Smith and Amir Hosseini a sort of clear ride up front, because they're pulling away. Nobody can clear Tauscher. Nobody can go after the top 2 as they come once more, then down towards turn 12. This loops you around the back of the paddock. Short straight, turn 13. Important corner this, because not only is it tight, it also climbs. Get this wrong, it compromises the run all the way up the hill to turn 14, which in turn brings you onto the pit straight, which in turn, a good exit from is essential for all the speed down to turn 1. Riding with Baldwin now, and that Honda, fleet of foot in a straight line, maintains the gap, doesn't it?
It does actually, really quite a big advantage here at the Hungaroring. If you've got a good car in a straight line, if you're strong on the brakes as well at the end of this straight, that's really going to help you retain position. But Baldwin's car at this moment looks very neutral, so it seems like the Veloci McLaren machine, it's doing exactly what James Baldwin wants it to do, which there was a question mark over that, with an uncharacteristically low qualifying place for the Englishman. But Baldwin looks very, very comfortable, very calm behind the wheel. The car looks nice and stable, and that's going to pay him back over the course of this race. Baldwin definitely is one to keep an eye out for, a podium at the very least. But I know we're a little way away, David, yet still 47 minutes left on the clock. It's going to be fascinating to see who decides to pull the plug when the pit stop window opens as well, because that could have a very big difference if you can buy yourself some clean air.
I was just thinking the same thing, and if I were one of the drivers in this group, I'd pit early to get out of the traffic. Now, the danger is that you might put yourself in more traffic afterwards, but I think the road would open up for you. So I'm, at the moment, thinking an early stop is a good thing. Amir Hosseini's McLaren, though, is looking increasingly competitive against Jordan Grant-Smith's Porsche as they come then now towards the right-left sequence of corners that brings you in turn back down towards turn 12. Their Bentley battle, they fill up an awful lot of circuit, the Bentleys, and on the inside line, Ogorodnikov just about hangs on to his place, does he? Yes, he does, but for how much longer? Because now Dominic Blyer gets up the inside, elbows out, and Blyer goes through. That is going to give him a place in class, which is significant, up towards the end of the lap. This is turn 14. They head now onto the pit straight up towards the timing line. So Dominic Blyer goes through 16th overall, but he's gained a position in class. He now goes 3rd in the class. Look at this for 3rd place. Tauscher, in fairness to him, is doing a great job of withstanding the pressure.
Yep, superb job, and lap times actually are very strong for Tauscher, in the mid 43s at this stage, which is in and around. Oh, Tauscher mistake, David.
That's it. That is what we've been waiting for. Finally, the pressure tells. Losio goes past him straight away. Robbie Stapleford is on his toes, and here comes Kieran Prendergast up the inside of the Honda. He's going to try to mug the BMW. Couldn't do it. Now James Baldwin makes his move on the inside line, forces Prendergast wide over the curb. They're going to be absolutely together, but Prendergast fights back. Out of all of that, amazingly, there's very little shuffling in the order, and Tauscher only lost 1 place. That was good, hard racing, but Michael Tauscher then just made a tiny, tiny error, but he was able to regroup very quickly and swat everybody else aside.
Yeah, that was sensational from Michael Tauscher. Did well to control the car in the first instance, and as you say, kept his wits about him, kept his head nice and calm, and managed to slot back into 4th position. And James Baldwin, ever the hunter, really sniffing around trying to find an opportunity as well. But Baldwin showed enough intelligence there not to force the issue, tried to err on the side of caution, I think, a little bit at this stage in the race. But the question is now, can Tauscher regain his composure? Is there enough pace? I was just starting to talk about the lap times. Is there enough pace in that 91 Porsche to stay with Luca Lozio? Or is it going to be a case that Lozio now makes a two-way fight at the front of the field into a three-way?
Into the pit lane has come Jordan Sherratt in the Lamborghini. Sorry, I tell you a lie. Robbie Stapleford is in the pits out of that battle. So he was leading silver. So he has come into the pit lane. Also in is Tobias Grunewald. Now that could be an absolutely key move for the BMW. So Robbie Stapleford in at the end of 9 laps. And I'm surprised that more haven't done the same. We were looking at Jordan Sherratt, but Robbie Stapleford is the one that's come into the pit lane out of that leading group. So they're promoted for the moment. Kieran Prendergast then takes over the lead of the silver class. But Stapleford in at the end of lap 9, that could be a really, really good move.
Yeah, it really could. I gave a little bit of a groan there. As a commentator, I really wanted to see Stapleford in the heart of the fight, but as a driver, that is absolutely the right decision. As you say, David, get yourself out of this train, get yourself out of all these problems, because there's the pace issue, and there's also you're imminently in risk of making contact or being made contact with. Get out, get some clean air, unlock the potential of your car. Everybody else has to make a stop, and hopefully, we call it the undercut, of course, for anybody who's new to racing at home, that you can get in the pits early, use your lap advantage, clear up the yardage compared to your rivals, and then hopefully, for the driver at least, that's a free pass. But Amir Hassani at the front started, looks like he's having a bit of connection difficulty actually in that car. We see it awkward the way it moves out on circuit, which normally suggests your connection to the server is not quite as strong as you would hope it would be. So hopefully for Hassani that's a temporary problem and not something that's going to come and cause him some drama later in this race.
I think you're right, he's got quite a pronounced yellow bar. So actually is Jordan Sherratt. If you look at that little yellow marking just in front of the logo of the manufacturer, you can see they're both showing yellow, and that suggests they've got these connectivity problems. The gap between the leaders is only 0.7 of a second. I'm still surprised more aren't coming in. Capoccia is in, Schoeniger is in, also Ogorodnikov is in, but surprisingly few out of that leading group. So what is it that's making them stay on track and stay in that line, that queue of cars? Because you know there are people working with the drivers, being able to advise their spotters, if you like, saying, okay, pit now or stay out because, and I'm still trying to get my head around the strategy of keeping people out if they're not making progress, if they're stuck in traffic. It seems self-defeating.
I would totally agree. I can only sort of surmise that maybe they've done the maths, and if they come in now, they're going to get into another batch of traffic that's potentially got a lower ultimate pace than what we're seeing so far with Tauscher. Because as I say, Michael Tauscher, he's not lapping slowly. Even defending, even soaking up that pressure, he's still comparable in lap time to our 2 race leaders. Granted, our 2 race leaders aren't the absolute fastest cars on the racetrack, but it's relatively competitive. But as you say, David, it's a no-brainer for me. If I'm on that track, I want to get down pit lane ASAP. Even if I come out into further traffic, I would feel more confident of clearing that traffic than as you were in this current little group.
And also, if that's slower traffic, does that mean you would have an easier chance of getting past it? You know, because their drivers will be running at your pace and maybe aren't at your level in terms of racecraft. Anyway, look, better brains than ours that run these teams, that assist the drivers, have come up with what they think is the plan. So let's see whether Robbie Stapleford makes good late in the race or whether it goes against him. He came in, remember, on that 9. We've now done 11. The leaders go by, and the lead gap is down by a Nat semi-crotchet from about 0.7 down to half a second. Good little fight on there, though, you can see as Jordan Sherratt tries to fend off number 22, Nicholas Hauben, with the R8G Esports Audi. They are absolutely nose to tail on board now with Nicholas Hauben, and he is on a mission, isn't he?
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Hauben's got the cars on his tippy toes. He knows he's got the pace advantage over Jordan Sherratt at this stage in the race at least, and he'll have been warned by his team. This is critical time. This is pit window time now. Make a decision. Can you find a way past the Lamborghini ahead? Or do we call you down pit road? And Nicholas Hauben, he's been around this game, he's been around this championship for quite a while now, so he knows the pros and cons of each individual strategy decision, and trust me, he'll want that place. But Jordan Sherratt, there's no flies on Jordan Sherratt either. He knows how to defend.
There's also a 5-second penalty that has been given to Leo Boulay, who is 19th at the moment. He's not yet made his pit stop, but Leo Boulay has picked up a penalty somewhere along the line. Try and keep an eye to that and get more details on it. But for the moment, we've got a car there with a problem. Jordan Grant-Smith then is still leading, but he is still under attack, isn't he?
Yeah, Grant Smith now. The pressure's starting to raise a little bit for Jordan Grant Smith, and you can see he looks relatively tense. The picture-in-picture, great thing about eSport racing, we can see the drivers in their environment as they race along, but you can see he just looks a little bit tense behind the wheel of the Porsche. He's maybe not able to extract the pace that he wants to be able to extract. But the good thing at this stage, David, for Jordan Grant Smith is Amir Hassani is not quite close enough to need Grant Smith to defend. As soon as you start defending the inside line, that's when you hemorrhage lap time, and that's when Luca Lozio goes from 3 seconds away to frankly nothing.
Absolutely, he's got clear real estate ahead of him, and he's going to gobble that up with Michael Tauscher going with him. And actually, Tauscher would be well advised not to fight at the moment, just follow that BMW, the Mobileye-backed Jean Lacey Esports Academy entry of Lozio, because he's going to make up the time. It'll drag him along. I mentioned Leo Boulay had been given a 5-second penalty. It was for causing a collision early on in the race, so that's why Boulay has got that penalty. Nils Naujoks has still got the fastest lap of the race. Remember as well, you get a point for pole position within the championship. In each class, points are scored per class. So there's one going for Jordan Grant-Smith, there's another one for Robbie Stapleford. And remember that within silver, Stapleford is doing the chasing against Dominic Blyer. He's got a lot of chasing to do, but right now Dominic Blyer is not to be found quite as well up the class as you would normally find him. Through goes Andrea Capoccia, Audi number 4, and he is now chasing after Robbie Stapleford and also Dominic Schoeniger. Schoeniger number 9 Mercedes, just up the road ahead of the Audi now.
Yeah, great racing all the way through the field, as we come to expect in all of the many SRO Esports Championships. Of course, we race in Asia and the Americas, as well as the Endurance Series. So great racing further down the pack, 20th, 21st and 22nd position. Tobias Grunewald, number 52 car, at the back of this little train, the Mercedes, the Unicorns of Love car, is the one that we'd expect to see. But I'm seeing on our stream, got a drive-through penalty for Kapanen in 15th position. That's for track limits, I'm hearing in my ear. So already, David, drivers are starting to fall foul of the tight and twisty confines of the Hungaroring.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is if they're stuck in traffic and they're getting desperate. You know, they can't find a way through, so they start to move the car around a little bit more. And also, if they're stuck behind a car ahead and you're in dirty air, then it is going to be actually working your tyres harder, because you're having to work the car harder. It's not got the same aerodynamic benefit. You're running in somebody else's dirty air, your tyres go off, therefore your grip goes off, therefore you go off, and therefore track limits become particularly difficult. The exit of turn 5 up at the top of the circuit is one of them, and turn 4 just before it, as you climb the hill and go left, people always run wide there, and that's normally a place that track limits become a big factor. Capoccia dives for the inside line, heading down the hill towards turns 2 and 3. No way through there.
And that's frustration, pure and simple, from Capoccia. Taking a look on a corner where there's absolutely no way to really overtake. You can see he's becoming frustrated. He knows he's got more pace in the car, but he just cannot leverage that pace into an overtaking opportunity. Dominic Blyer, that we're looking at now, very sideways in the Bentley, pushing that one to its absolute limits, just outside the top 10, behind Kevin Siclari. And Blyer, he's, as you said, David, it's got to the point where he kind of almost expects to win his class in this championship. So it will hurt him to know that he's not at the front of the field at this moment in time. And the worst part about it is Pendergrast is in 5th position. He's a long way up the road, so big work for Dominic Blyer if he wants to take away the top prize and the trophy with class victory.
And also there's Robbie Stapleford, who is the leading not only pit stopper overall, but silver, of course, as well. So if you bump him back up the order, as everybody else has to cycle through the pit stops, then so he is also going to be ahead of Dominic Blyer, who has, as you rightly say, Paul, got a lot of work to do here. So drive through for number 113 for causing a collision. Number 113 being Jesse Kauppinen. He'd already copped one penalty for track limits, as you were hearing from Paul a minute ago. Now he's got another one causing a collision, and I suspect, because he's just come into the pit lane, he's not going to go back out again. Now, Niels Naujoks into the pits. He served his mandatory pit stop. That could be quite a shrewd move, couldn't it? Because he was playing catch-up anyway after the contact at the first corner, but that gets him out of the traffic. There he is. He rejoins up alongside Capoccia in the Audi. BMW and Audi go toe-to-toe. See Niels Naujoks hard at work. Capoccia in the Audi is with him as they drop down the hill. They've both made their pit stop, so this is a genuine battle for position now. And actually, Naujoks gets run out wide and makes contact with the Mercedes there. Tobias Grunewald leans on him a little bit. He gets forced out wide, and Naujoks is all of a sudden released into a big, big battle.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate timing for Niels Naujoks. He desperately wanted to be in front of those two cars so he could do his own race, set his own pace, but now he's back behind Grunewald, who actually was quite liberal in his use of outside of race circuit in order to make that pass. You could see Naujoks picture-in-picture waving his arms about, frustrated where that's worked. But in reality, David, this has worked out very nicely indeed. 20th overall, but what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6th position of those that have already made their pit stop. Naujoks' evening looks like it might reward him much more than we would have suggested at the very start when he was being collected by all and sundry down into T1 at the start of the race.
Yeah, Dominic Blyer has just come in. The problem that Naujoks has got, though, you're right, he's sort of getting back into the mix, but the trouble is he's stuck in traffic now, so his lap times are slower than if he were running in clean air. And further up the road are people that are in clearer air and are being able to run at a faster pace, so they're going to win on the pit stop. So he is going to gain places, but I don't think it's going to be quite as good as he would have liked. He made the gamble by pitting, but the trouble is he's come out in a real old scrum of cars, and as yet, not only has he not got through them, he actually got roughed up a bit, didn't he, by Grunewald, and got shoehorned back a place.
Yeah, and that's such is the danger of a pit stop race, as we've spoken about already earlier in the show. When you decide to come down pit road, and more importantly when you exit pit road, can easily make or break your race. Robbie Stapleford now continues his charge in 14th position, so there is an overtake 4-track position from Leo Bouhet, who we know has a 5-second penalty that will be served next time he jumps down pit road. So good driving from Stapleford, continuing to be the leader of those who have been down pit road and served their mandatory pit stop. And again, anybody who's new to the championship, just to clarify, there's no new tyres. Well, you can have new tyres if you like, but the rules say you need to put 1 litre of fuel in the car as a minimum. That will be the tactic that every single driver employs for this race. 1 litre, short, sharp, sweet, and out you go again. So you've still got a relative amount of temperature in your tyres, but for those like Naujoks, who've been spinning around and trying to fight their way back up, they've got to work their rubber, David, considerably harder than somebody who's had a quote-unquote easier time of it further up the field. So all the odds are stacked against you, but if I'm in the Neil Naujoks fan club, I wouldn't give up hope yet, because he has a way, doesn't he, of squeezing a result when no result looked possible.
He's a sort of Fernando Alonso type character, isn't he?
Yes,
He can wring anything out of the car, however unprepossessing it looks. You're quite right. The next one for the pit lane, another of the McLarens that comes in, is Sven Hettich in the Prime E-Racing Silver class car. Race leaders currently then battle on as Robbie Stapleford works his way through the traffic. Remember, he has pitted, and now he goes through on the inside of Mattia Zampedri's mixed wheels Bentley. Made that look pretty easy. Meantime, James Baldwin has got himself back onto the tail of Kieran Prendergast, who in turn is staring at the rear of the Porsche of Michael Tauscher, but hasn't found a way by. And the lead gap is coming down as well. Amir Hosseini, still with his connectivity issues, is getting a little bit closer to Jordan Grant-Smith. So there's still quite a lot to shake out of this as we are nudging now up towards the halfway mark. There's the Honda, that's 5th, it's leading Silver, and it's Kieran Prendergast at the wheel.
Yep, it really does feel like Amir Hosseini in 2nd position has the pace over Jordan Grant-Smith. At this stage, at least in the race, he's just biding his time and understanding when the right opportunity is to try and make his move on the leading Porsche. But Kieran Prendergast, that we're looking at this moment in time as well, and the McLaren, very much in the mix in the race and driving a fabulous race, it has to be said. And again, it's a difficult one, David, isn't it, as a driver? You're leading Silver. Not only are you leading Silver, but you're leading by quite a nice piece indeed. Do you want to get too heavily involved in these cars around you, or do you want to consolidate? Judging by the fact he's looking up the inside of Tauscher, suggests that he doesn't care one jot about Silver and wants an overall podium.
I think what he also wants is to try and get as far ahead of the class opposition as he can, because this is his chance to get ahead of Robbie Stapleford. And if Stapleford is getting through the traffic and Kieran Prendergast is stuck in traffic, then that's going to give the advantage to Stapleford, because his lap times are going to be that bit quicker. So right now, that Honda has got to try and clear Tauscher's Porsche. As soon as it does, it will be a quicker car, because the road is absolutely empty ahead, and that's exactly what he needs. So there's Kieran Prendergast turning his way here out of turn 5, short straight into 6 and 7, that right-left chicane. Track limits here are always an issue, because drivers will try and straight line it as much as possible, but they're actually being pretty well behaved. Turn 8 is the next left. Go right at turn 9, a left at 10, and then a sharper right at turn 11. That kind of switchback back part of the circuit, which flows nicely but doesn't give an opportunity to overtake, because there's never really enough space, not a heavy braking zone. There is here, coming down towards turn 12, but if you get a good exit out of the previous corner, you just claim the line, and the drivers behind have got to once more force an error out of the car ahead as they come now up to 13, and they're heading to the end of the lap. And now we are into the second half of the race, with still many in that leading queue yet to pit. Here comes Kieran Prendergast, gets out of the traffic.
And he needed that one, David. For the last 3 or 4 laps, he's been 3 to 4 tenths of a second slower than his class rival, Robbie Stapleford, despite the fact Stapleford is working his way through traffic and overtaking. So Pendergast will be aware of that one, losing time every second he remains in that train. So really, there's no other choice for the Honda driver just to get down pit road, get his service completed, and then it is, hopefully for him, a straight fight on track with Stapleford and the rest of the silver class, as Jordan Grant-Smith continues to lead, and that gap has extended quite a bit at the front of the field. Well, relatively speaking, quite a bit for Jordan Grant-Smith.
Yeah, I think that was because behind him, Amir Hosseini made a mistake coming out of turn 14. The car went in too quickly and therefore didn't get the apex and therefore ran wide, and that gave the advantage back to the race leader Jordan Grant-Smith. Niels Naujok still with the fastest lap of the race to his credit, and this long queue of cars comes over the line, including Dominic Blyer, who is now behind Boulay and Zampedri in class, but they've got to stop. So he is now 3rd in class. I reckon Prendergast got out still ahead of Robbie Stapleford, and if he did, then that is very commendable indeed. And it's also bad news for Blyer, as Naujok makes another go. There he is, look in the background, up alongside Grunewald, but that Mercedes is able to hang on to position very effectively.
Yeah, great racing again. It's the beauty, I think, isn't it, of GT racing? Very, very different cars, very different design philosophies, but the way the balance of performance works, the way the engineering sort of comes together, very, very simple, very, very similar lap times. Big drama. Michael Tauscher, who has seemingly not put a foot wrong, apparently has put a foot wrong on more than 3 occasions, and has been given the reward of a drive-through penalty for his time as well. Big drama at the front of the field.
It is indeed. So that now is bad news for him, but good news for James Baldwin. And perversely, as soon as the penalty is notified, so James dive bombs him anyway. He went through, he went wide, and he's lost the place back again. He will inherit it to, of course, when Michael Tauscher makes the mandatory stop for that drive-through, and then a subsequent mandatory stop under the regulations. But James Baldwin there made a dive, but just could not get the car slowed down in time. So now he needs Tauscher to serve this drive-through quickly to get out of his way, and the hard work is then done for him.
Yeah, that's really painful for Tauscher. He's got to stop within the next 3 laps to take that drive-through penalty. He's also got just 11 minutes and 20 seconds or so left on the clock in terms of the mandatory pit stop. So realistically, expect to see Tauscher dive down pit lane now to get the drive-through penalty out of the way and still give him a little bit of strategic wiggle room in order to take that mandatory pit stop as well. But it's a real... Here at the Hungaroring, it's an incredibly difficult circuit in terms of track limits. There's so many opportunities to put a wheel too far over the line, and the problem is, David, it's when there's 40 plus cars so competitive, you can't afford to give yourself a few feet of comfort room for the racing lines. If you drive that far under the limit, you're going to be at the back of the grid anyway, so there's no point turning up. And sadly for Tauscher, I'm afraid he's hit that penalty, and I dare say he'll not be the only one by the time the checkered flag falls in 25 minutes and change as Sherritt jumps down pit road.
That's right, the Lamborghini is in, and there, another example of track limits being abused. Part of the problem is it's a modern day Formula 1 circuit, and by the regulations, it has to have, rather than grass verges, all of this run-off tarmac, which therefore invites drivers to try. Here comes Baldwin again. We saw this a lap ago. He made the move and he went wide, but this time he's got it slowed down in time and he's finally made it stick. So James Baldwin up into 4th place. Now on the road, he doesn't have to wait for Tauscher to peel into the pit lane and serve the drive-through. He's gone by, and now that he's been released, let's see what Baldwin can do about Luca Lossio further up the road. But it still intrigues me that we are 25 minutes away from the end, and the leading 7 in the race have still yet to make their stop. And yet, even before the window, we thought the smart money would be on pitting early to get out of the traffic. So few have done that.
And that, David, is why we talk about it and they do it.
Yeah.
But actually, that's possibly the move for the race victory now on James Baldwin. Yes, it is only 4th position. I say only 4th position that he's taken. But Baldwin has ample clear air ahead of him. He is, I hate to say this one, but he is a bigger name, so to speak, than the 3 drivers in front of them. So he's a driver that's used to this pressure, used to running at the front and winning races. I would very much expect Baldwin now to start gapping Tauscher behind and really closing down on Lossio, who himself actually, Luca Lossio's not closed the front 2 up quite as quickly as I would have expected. So this is Baldwin's race, I think, now, and this is going to be huge for James Baldwin in terms of the championship as well.
Yeah, Amir Hosseini having a good run, Luca Lossio having a good run ahead as Tauscher pits. Now don't forget, he's got 2 stops to make. One is the drive-through and one is the regulation stop. Look, he's way up the curb, even into the pit lane, so you can see that the frustration has got to the Unicorns of Love driver. Down the pit road he comes, and this is going to be seemingly to do the regulation stop, so he's got to do the drive-through come what may. I'm assuming that message has got through to Michael Tauscher, but this is like the walk of shame, isn't it, for a drive-through? Just slowly make your way past everybody. He's got 2 wheels in the fast lane, the others on the apron, suggesting that he was going to turn into the pit box and serve it, but no, that's the drive-through dump, but he's going to have to come back in again as the leaders are absolutely nose to tail now.
Yeah, this is getting big drama at the front of the field. So Hosseini dropped away a little bit earlier on. We thought maybe Hosseini has a little bit more speed in the car than Jordan Grant Smith, and that's been proven by how quickly Amir has managed to get the car up onto the rear of the Porsche. And we just saw a couple of shots ago, there's some traffic ahead as well, which is exactly what Jordan Grant Smith does not need at this stage. He wants things to be as straightforward as possible, but with only a few minutes left on the pit window, will Amir Hosseini hold on to the very death, or will he come down pit road a little bit earlier and see if he can free himself up some track times that way? As Tobias Gronvold is involved in all of the drama in the world and a little bit more further down the field.
He's made that car really, really wide. Just ask Niels Naujoks, who still can't find a way past him, and he's being caught by Igor Ogorodnikov in the Bentley, who in turn is bringing the McLaren, then number 30, the Silver Cup car of Tommy Razier along for company as well. The SDL Esports Logitech G entry. Look back from Groeneveld's Mercedes, flicks through the chicane, rattles up the curb. So frustrating this for Naujoks. Talk about it in the real world, we talk about it in esports racing. The balance of performance works brilliantly for the parity between the cars. The downside for the drivers is that there's no one car with a demonstrable advantage over anything else. And here, look, the front-engined Mercedes, the front-engined BMW, so evenly matched. Naujoks closing right up under braking, but he doesn't have that extra half a second a lap pace to go breezing by because the cars are so evenly matched. They're so equal.
Yeah, they really are. Nikita Wisniewski, 6th position, jumps down pit road as well. So the final few of our drivers, you can tell, by the way, everybody at home, you can tell who's made their pit stop by the little coloured bar next to their race number. If it's green, that means they have served their stop and they do not need to come down pit lane again. If it is yellow, that indicates that a pit stop has still to be made by that driver. So anybody who's got green, they're the drivers that we need to keep our eye on to see where they filter out when everybody has made their stop. But look at Niels Naujoks now, really hungry to find a way past that Mercedes. Will he dive down the inside? Shows his nose. That's all about getting Gronvold to miss the inside line, to miss the apex, compromise himself on exit. He's working hard in the cockpit of that Mercedes as well, is Tobias Gronvold. So that car not looking comfortable at this stage. But look here, David, at the front of the field. This fight is well and truly on.
Jordan Grant-Smith's not looking comfy either, because he has got Amir Hosseini right there behind him, 0.3 of a second last time. Jordan Grant-Smith, the concentration is immense there as you see the gloved hands working on the wheel. Now the bad news for him is there's traffic ahead. Naujoks makes his move, he's up the curb at the chicane, there's contact. Groeneveldt gets tapping the tail from Ogorodnikov and loses out to Niels Naujoks. So finally the BMW jumps up to 16th overall. Jordan Sherritt's pit stop, 35.7 seconds, just by way of a guide as to what you're losing at the moment. But that seemed like a very slow stop for that Lamborghini. That seemed like a big chunk of time in the pit lane. So let's see how that's cost him when we get the car back into the mix. Right, look, Naujoks, he's got ahead of Groeneveldt. He's away and gone already by about 4 lengths, isn't he? The BMW finally able to illustrate just how much quicker it is.
Yeah, it's such a frustration that Niels Naujoks got involved in that first corner accident, because that machine looks very, very quick indeed. By the way, there's a stop and go penalty for Zampedri in 22nd position, so the number 18 will have to go down pit lane, stop at his box and hold for 30 seconds before going back out on the racetrack. So Zampedri, not quite sure exactly what happened there, but that is a big penalty issued by the stewards, and that's sadly game over for the Italian driver. But another Italian having a nice time of it, Andrea Capoccia, that we're looking at 14th position. These two have been glued together for the last 10-15 laps, and Capoccia still doesn't look like he can find a way past. So good driving from Dennis Schoeniger ahead.
It's always been in the real world a circuit that's been kind to the Mercedes, and it's the Mercedes heading the Audi in this battle. But the trouble is it's for 13th and 14th places. Niels Naujoks up into 15th, going after them as well. So he's creeping into the mix. Look, there is the BMW in the background. Niels Naujoks in the M4, getting closer and closer all the time. There is Jordan Grant-Smith into the pit lane. So the leader is in, and that gives finally Amir Hosseini the race lead. But JGS here can't afford for this to be a slow stop, can he? As in also, by the look of it, comes Luca Lossio.
Now this is critical, so Jordan Grant-Smith is going for a different strategy to Amir Hosseini. I suggested that Hosseini maybe has a little bit more pace, but there is traffic in front of him, so Amir Hosseini will probably jump down pit road at the end of this lap, maybe not quite long enough to try and eke out that advantage when all things are equal. But let's find out, has Amir Hosseini got enough speed in that McLaren to overlap the Porsche when he comes and serves his own pit stop? And can Jordan Grant-Smith now nail this outlap, get straight back onto the pace immediately? He cannot afford to be conservative, because this could be for the race lead.
It's looking very overcast as well now. Not only is it nearly 7:30 in the game in the time, but it's also looking as though it is getting cooler and more blustery as well. Now, you're right about the strategies of Hosseini and Grant-Smith. I think Jordan probably timed that about right, because he could see the back markers up the road. He left it as late as he could before he pitted, and Hosseini then, with only really this lap and one more to play with, is getting up behind that traffic. Now, it's in a sense worth staying out for one more lap, because he was able to push without a car directly ahead of him, but he can't do it for another lap, because if he does, he's going to be in the traffic. And look at that traffic ahead of him, 3 of them all squabbling for position. So surely he's going to come in this time. No, yes, he is in. So Amir Hosseini does bail, and as he comes down the pit road, Jordan Grant-Smith is kind of midway around the lap, isn't he now, coming up through turn 9.
And that's a gamble for Hosseini that's worth taking. Even though there's traffic in the way, doing exactly the same thing will produce exactly the same result. So it's worth throwing the dice to see if he can do anything. He's got a comfort blanket behind him, so worst case scenario, he's going to come out second, broadly the same kind of gap as he had before.
Jordan Grant-Smith's time, 35.7 seconds line to line for the pit stop. One of the best, if not the best, Niels Naujoks, 35.2. So Amir Hosseini sits, he takes on that litre of fuel, car drops down. So does that mean that he was doing tyres as well? It just seems to be a little bit slower. Well, there is Jordan Grant-Smith in the lead, and for my money, he's actually stretched the margin. Look at that, going down towards turn 1. Porsche is ahead by quite some distance now.
Yeah, that's a real poor stop for Amir Hosseini, a little bit too slow, maybe just missed his marker slightly on pit road, and also a little bit slower off and on the on and off, should I say, the pit lane speed. And what was it there, 38 seconds, so we're expecting that's about a 2.3 second loss over his rival. So Hosseini rolled the dice, did not get the end result he needed, but as I say, the good thing for Amir is he could afford to do that one, because he's got the gap to the cars behind, and we think he's got the pace. So let's find out. This will be a great test, David, to see how fast Amir Hosseini is in this race, is how quickly, if at all he can, close that gap to Jordan Grant-Smith. And critically, Hosseini's come out of this crazy collection of cars just behind him, because that would have been game over.
Yeah, behind him is Luca Lossio, but he's not actually staying on the back in the BMW. Then you've got a back marker. Then you've got Robbie Stapleford in 4th in the BMW. Then it's James Baldwin 5th in the McLaren there in the background. Nicholas Halburn is 6th. Jordan Sherratt 7th. Kieran Prendergast is 8th. So he's lost his class lead. So there's evidence about Robbie Stapleford's decision to pit at the end of lap 9. It's worked out for him, because there he is comfortably ahead in the class. Dominic Blyer 10th overall, but only 3rd in silver. And actually, for Nils Naujoks, he's not gained that much, has he, on the pit stop strategy, because he's down in 14th place and still mired in traffic. As there, Stapleford tries to make his move, getting up past the back-marking Bentley, but he can't find a way through. Those two cars still very, very evenly matched. So Robbie Stapleford then on the tail of Mattia Zampedri, but he needs to clear him and put that lap on the back marker. Goes for the inside line at turn 1 and goes through. 4th overall, Robbie Stapleford heading for a silver class win. Really good drive, this.
Yeah, it really is a fantastic drive, and made or break, he made it on the pit stop strategy, as you say, coming in earlier than his rivals, recognised where there could be some advantage and then executed it absolutely perfectly. So we said it right at the very top of the show. I need to stop referring to him as young Robbie Stapleford all the time, because that does him a disservice. He's young in years, but very, very old in terms of his mentality to come in motor racing, and does a great job. And Stapleford, a star of tomorrow, but let's be quite frank, an absolute star of today as well, and he's proving that once again. Another star of today, also in a BMW, is Nils Naujoks, looking around the outside of the Audi. Very rare that you find a successful overtake there, but that doesn't stop Naujoks from giving it a go. And as you said, David, maybe not quite delivered the result that he was hoping to deliver with that strategy, but Naujoks hasn't done yet. He's still got 13 minutes. You can do a bit of damage from 13 minutes of racing action, and the concentration on Nils Naujoks' face suggests he's not done going forward just yet.
I would go along with that. He is still pushing. He's not given up. And of course, you score points in class, so you take those silvers that are ahead of him out of the equation, and he moves up in terms of his position and therefore the points. It's not points for overall. Yeah, I think his problem was that he was released into a big battle pack, and that went against him. But there are plenty of squabbles still to be resolved all the way around the circuit, like there. Number 227. Which goes through the Matisse Leitao Audi, the full motorsport by race esports team. He's on a mission, isn't he, to try to get ahead there of Samir Ibrahimi and the Aston Martin. Those two could not be closer.
Yeah, really good fight. It's a drive-through penalty just about being served now by Marco Jonkers in 28th position. So drive-through for track limits from Jonkers. And I'm just hearing actually from Michael Hamlet on pit wall that by his calculations, Baldwin will go to 2nd in the standings if things stay as they are, and McCormack will keep his championship lead. So yes, as you were at the front of the field, it's got a lot closer. If, and if is a very, very big word in racing, be it real or virtual, if things stay as they are at this moment in time.
It's going to make the final round a thriller, isn't it? Because you're going to have another good race, but also a really dramatic situation within the championship. Now here, this is the fight going on for 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, at the back of which 215 Nils Klinkmüller with the Mercedes AMG Esports team, HRT the Haupt racing team. Up over the timing line they come. Look back from Leitao's Team Full Motorsport Audi. Team Full Motorsport, another real world team in the European GT4 series. Down towards turn 1, he covers off the line, make sure that the Bentley can't dive bomb him there. We've only got 11 minutes of the race to go, and that Audi attacking and defending at the same time, because right there behind him is David Petil, who is looking for a way by on the inside, dropping down the hill. There's a gap, but only because the Audi makes a mistake and goes out wide.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Patil really aggressive there, just sees the opportunity, tries to put the car alongside, but recognises that that is a door that is going to be firmly closed, so backs out of it, gives his rival racing room. And I'm going to petition for these races to be 2 hours long next season, David, because can you believe there's only just under 11 minutes left to go, and we have still got pretty much for the entirety of the grid door-to-door, nose-to-nose racing all the way through the field. This has been exactly like we hoped it would be, Absolutely sensational racing. So big credit to all of our drivers for putting on a fabulous show for us in the box and everybody at home as well. And we've still got 10.5 minutes to go. So I don't think the stories have been finished just yet, if these guys have got anything to go by.
I think you might well be right then, as the cars turn their way downhill. We are with just 10 more minutes of the race to go. And Niels Naujoks still has the fastest lap of the race to his credit, but he still can't clear Andrea Capoccia. The sparks fly as the cars charge uphill through turn 4, right at 5, short straight to the chicane at 6 and 7. And as Capoccia is fending off Naujoks, he's also now got a bit stuck, hasn't he, behind Tinko van der Velde with the Williams Esports Bentley there, the blue and white car, which in turn is chasing Kevin Ciclari's Mercedes. So all of this for 11th and back, and it could all change in a twinkling if only one driver clips a curb, delays themselves, makes a bit of an error. It'll all come shuffling around.
It will. What we need to filter into the equation as well, of course, these cars now have been running for a good 50 minutes, so the tyres are a little bit worn. The cars are running light compared to what they started this race, so they'll be a little bit more lively, a little bit more able to be shuffled and encouraged around this track. But the drivers are now very susceptible to track limit penalties. The simulation will allow you to go outside of the defined track limit on 2 occasions. On the third, you'll be issued with a drive-through penalty. Many of these drivers, I am absolutely certain, will have got at least one strike against their name, as we've seen a drive-through penalty for Tauscher again, another drive-through penalty. So Tauscher started off in spectacular fashion, and sadly I think now that is end of day. Real disappointing for Tauscher there, and that illustrates perfectly, David, exactly what I was saying. This is the wishing hour for track limits now.
It is, isn't it? I was about to say he's got himself back up into 19th place. Well, he might as well give up on this if he's got a second drive-through, and again it is for track limits. Just going back to the championship, provisionally, as you say, Dan McCormick will lead going into that last round, but only by 5 points from reigning champion James Baldwin. So we are going to be on for a really great finish, really good race to round out the season. And Baldwin, of course, has not done yet. Problem is that to get more points in pro, he's got to get past the silver car of Robbie Stapleford, and that may not be very easy. There is Naujoks, who is on the tail of Capoccia, who is still on the tail of Van der Velde, who is still on the tail of Ciclari. 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, absolutely as one. Grunewald trying to play catch-up in the Mercedes. So, again, you look at the troubles of the Hungaroring as in. It's a great circuit for viewing. It's got a really nice flowing nature to it, but it's really hard to pass around here. And Naujoks trying everything he knows to force a mistake. Pulls out of the draft, pulls back in again, dodging around in the mirrors there and in the little video screen that the real world cars have of the Audi of Capoccia. But he's not for making a mistake, is he?
No, absolutely not. Capoccia soaking all this pressure up. In fact, actually, he seems to be on the attack now and fancies his chances against the Williams Esports Bentley ahead. And Capoccia's got to be committed. If he wants to make an overtaking manoeuvre, he cannot afford a half-measure manoeuvre, because that will open the door to Niels Naujoks behind. So Capoccia's in that very difficult position of do I or don't I when it comes to the back of the Williams car. But the Bentley jinking to the inside, covers the inside line. Capoccia shows his nose, hoping that the Williams car runs wide, which it does not. Naujoks just holding back a little as well. Again, very experienced, very talented driver, will recognise that Capoccia is getting a little bit frustrated, and this is what Naujoks needs this now. Naujoks needs Capoccia's mental faculties to be concentrated on something other than keeping that very bright liveried BMW at bay behind, and that's exactly what's unfolding. So this is a great opportunity for Niels Naujoks. Tobias Grunewald will be desperate to buy into this one as well, although he's a little bit detached from this 4-car pack ahead. So this one's going to go on and on until the checkered flag, and I would not want to lay money down to any of these drivers staying in the same position by the time we summarise at the end of this race.
Tinko van der Velde hard at work, and he's getting himself closer and closer to Kevin Ciclari. Kevin is the cork in the bottle out of all of this. You get the feeling that were van der Velde able to find a Bentley-shaped gap, he'd be through it and he'd be away and gone. But he's stuck, and therefore Capoccia is on the tail of the Bentley. So it's up to Kevin Ciclari here to either keep van der Velde at bay or to make that mistake to run wide to then open the floodgates, and he's not in a mood to do that. It's absolutely certain. Niels Naujoks, remember, did the fastest lap of the race early on when he was playing catch-up, but he's going to be massively frustrated that he's now stuck in the traffic, and he's stuck down in 14th place overall you're also getting not only to your bewitching hour for track limits, but maybe also now to the point where drivers are so frustrated about being stuck in a queue that they just get a little bit more boisterous in how they attack people.
And I will say, Capocci needs to be a little bit careful at this stage. He's been very, very aggressive in his weaving, trying to defend from Nils Naujoks and also find a way past the Williams car ahead. So Capocci just needs to rein it in a little bit, because not only will that cost him time, that will incur additional wear onto his car and to his tyres, but also the stewards might want to start thinking about having a little look at the Audi driver if they're deeming that to be unsportsmanlike in his defence. And Nils Naujoks is very quick to frustration and not averse to being a bit aggressive in the overtakes himself as Tauscher goes down pit lane to serve that drive-through penalty. So Naujoks might need to start thinking about touring car tactics, shall we say, to find his way past the Audi ahead.
Indeed so, because he's tried most other things, hasn't he? So now it's time to get the elbows out. Tauscher, there is the contact. It comes at the chicane. Capoccia bounces off the BMW and hangs onto the position. That might be looked at, but the chicane is a bit of a pinch point. You know, you're on one line, it's your part of the chicane, and then you're on the wrong side. So sometimes contact is inevitable. They get away with it, and Capoccia keeps the place. The other thing that we're looking at now, of course, not only are the temperatures changing, but so is the track surface, so is the grip because it's getting cooler, but also the light's fading now, 20 to 8 in the time within the game.
Yep, Capoccia there made the mistake. That's what opened the door for Naujoks. And there we go again. Another mistake from Capoccia. Another kiss, door to door. Both cars run wide. That is Tobias Gronvold's opportunity to throw the Mercedes down the inside. That will become the outside for the final corner. Naujoks in the pound seats. Capoccia recognises the threat, gives him racing room. Good driving there from Andrei Capoccia. Nils Naujoks gets the job done. And now it's Tobias Gronvold's opportunity. It's deep in the slipstream of the Audi. Has he got a substantial run through the final corner? The Audi good in a straight line, back on the attack again. Naujoks deeply defensive. Capoccia, can he get the job done around the outside? Gronvold fighting as well at the back of the field, and that is exactly the moment we needed, David. One small mistake, one change outside of the ordinary, and Nils Naujoks pounces, and now Capoccia has gone from the defender to the attacker.
Absolutely right. It all changed, didn't it? That's what we were kind of waiting for, and finally it happened. So we have had a bit of a turnaround of fortunes. We have had some shuffling, and that changes the order a little bit lower down the field. So Naujoks then released. Let's see what he can do about that Bentley. He's 1.6 seconds back. Dominic Blyer, in the meantime, is getting right onto the back now of Nico Wisniewski's Williams Esports Mercedes. Those blue and white colours of Williams Esports might be fairly simplistic, but they work well, whether it's on the Mercedes here or the Bentley we were looking at earlier of Van der Velde. Disappointing day this for Dominic Blyer, isn't it? No pole position for the first time, not a win for the first time all season. This has been a pretty tough afternoon racing for him, and he will not take kindly to not only being defeated, but being only third in class.
The flip side of that one, if your bad days are third in class and 10th overall, then that's a pretty fine season. So Blyer, yeah, absolutely, will be very disappointed in terms of this standalone event, the race today. But for his championship, that is a nice damage limitation exercise, and continues ever onwards to the charge for taking the silver class overall championship with just Monza left to go. So it's very easy, David, isn't it, as a driver? Doesn't matter whether it's real or virtual, doesn't matter whether it's pro or AM class racing. It's so, when things are going against you, it's incredibly easy to let that get to you and affect your performance and incite mistakes and accidents, and you go from damage limitation to picking yourself out of the Armco. So credit to Dominic Blyer that he's kept his head and made the best of what's, to quote Ron Dennis, a suboptimal situation.
Yes, indeed. Another good phrase I discovered at Silverstone at the weekend in a steward's bulletin after an incident between two cars was a low probability move, which I thought was a nice corruption of the English language. Drove like a gnome, I think that translates to. But yeah, I mean, right now Blyer is doing the right thing. Okay, he's having to accept the fact that it's not his day, but he's banking points, as you rightly say. A podium in class ain't bad. It's getting very, very grey ahead. I don't think we're heading for rain, but we might just have that threat. Temperatures are dropping. And off the road briefly there goes Ciclari, drops a wheel over the dirt, so does Nils Naujoks. Does seem that the track surface, the amount of grip now in these cooler temperatures is changing, and a drive-through for Naujoks. Nils Naujoks gets a drive-through.
Oh, and that is again the track limit strike once again, as we said, towards the end of the race, and this could not be closer to the end of the race with just 50 seconds left on the clock. So now Yox will have to dive down pit lane immediately, otherwise he will get a penalty at the end of the race, will take him completely out of contention. So now Yox, a real frustrating end to what's been very, very frustrating day. But Jordan Grant-Smith at the front of the field, we I certainly did, cast doubt on his experience at the front of the field and whether he could hold on. But Jordan Grant-Smith has driven sensationally well, and now with just a few moments left on the clock, over 2 seconds advantage, that's about as dominating as you're going to get in this championship.
He was helped, wasn't he, by that duff stop for Hosseini, but Jordan Grant-Smith, who had a win here last year in the American Sprint Championship, is on target for a win here. I think we're going to get away without any rain. So as the Porsche works its way on this last lap, we've hit 0 on the clock. Checkered flag is going to be at the ready. Nayox has not pitted, so he is going to have to get that extra time penalty post-race, which will change the order again. But Jordan Grant-Smith is going to be our third different winner in 4 races, and he has driven absolutely impeccably, hasn't he? He's not put a wheel wrong. And look at this battle to the wire.
Yeah, fabulous stuff from Grant-Smith. It's still not over yet. Further down the running order, everybody's squabbling for the last opportunity in the dying moments of the race.
And Niels Nayox to the outside line against Tinko van der Velde, but it's all a bit of a phony fight in a sense, because with the drive-through penalty converted to a time penalty to be applied, Nayox really isn't in this battle. I'm assuming that the message has got through to him, but he's having a red-hot go nonetheless as the cars now accelerate up towards the end of the lap. But up towards the checkered flag comes Jordan Grant-Smith, the Mobileye GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship. Round 4 from the Hungaroring is going to be won by Porsche. It's going to be won by a delighted Jordan Grant-Smith. He wins at the Hungaroring. Second across the line, Amir Hosseini, who brought the gap down at the end, but not enough to strike. Luca Lossio is going to come through to take third at the end of an all-action round of the championship.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. James Baldwin does his championship a world of good as well, in 5th position ahead of Nicholas Hobart and Jordan Sherratt. Fabulous job in the Lamborghini, not a mark that we've seen massively competitive here in this championship, but 7th at the flag ahead of Kieran Pendergrass as well is a good result indeed. And in the silver class, David, we have got a victory overall. It's just got off my screen now actually, so I'm not quite sure who took the silver class win, but the big winner from all of this is everybody at home, because that was a very fine race indeed.
It was indeed. Some very good drives. If you look the other way from what was going on at the very start at turn 1, Robbie Stapleford is the answer to the question as to who won silver. But yeah, once we got that out of their system, it was a very good, clean race. We didn't have too much drama. What we did have as a legacy of that, though, was a number of the star names in strife, like Tonitza, like Arthur Camera, and of course like Niels Nayox, who dropped back. Now, Michael Tauscher, fair play to him, because he went back out after his second drive-through. He persevered with that, and he's going to finish about next Tuesday, looking at the time penalties he's got, the drive-throughs and where it drops him to. But at least he's persevered, and he comes through. Michael Tauscher, what he has proved, I guess, is that he's one to watch for future rounds, because when he was keeping out of trouble, the pace was pretty decent.
Yeah, it's fantastic actually. Unfortunately, as you say, credit to him for persevering, and his reward was a 3rd drive-through penalty. So obviously Michael Tauscher likes to reward his pit crew with a little smile and a wave mid-race down pit lane, but as you say, he showed himself to be a competitive driver, to be very, very fast, and more importantly for me, he can take the pressure of being at the front of the field under significant strain from others. So one to watch, as you say, for Monza and beyond.
Yeah, he did make a mistake, but it was perhaps understandable with so many cars queued up behind him. Replay of what was going on at the start of the race as everybody came diving down towards turn 1, and being at the back was perhaps beneficial, trying to keep out of trouble. And there you had cars to the left, to the right, and once you'd been biffed or once you'd got it wrong on cold tyres, with so many cars around, it was like being on a pinball machine, wasn't it? You just bounced off the opposition. But Niels Nayox there, look at the back, rejoining. He wasn't quite last, even though he'd been turned around, and then ahead of him more cars went off the road, and that delayed him. Look, there are people arriving backwards. How many were involved in that? 6, 7, 8?
That's numbers I can't count.
Yeah,
Nayox
had to slow right down, pick his way through. But yeah, that was, in real world racing, an enormous safety car period. But thankfully, in the virtual world, most of them picked themselves up again and carried on.
And the interesting thing, actually, David, is we highlighted T1 as the pinch point where the drama, and which we were rewarded with by contact. But actually, there was a secondary accident as well on the run through to the T2 left-hander. So not one, but two first lap shunts. And the problem with big grids, 41 cars started this race. The Hungaroring is a narrow circuit. It's an old school circuit in its nature. You have contact when it's so tight, and you can't help but get involved in that one. Some drivers check up, that causes problems. Some drivers don't recognise the threat, that causes problems. So it really is very, very difficult, unless you're in the top 3 or 4, to stay out of trouble. And we have damage in this championship too, so even small damage on this car, that compromises your race for the next 59 minutes and 30 seconds, and it's so hard to overcome that, isn't it?
It is indeed, but an absolutely great job done by Jordan Grant-Smith. Fantastic drive. Paul, I think it's time to hear from the winner, isn't it? He's all yours.
Fantastic. Jordan Grant-Smith, race winner at the Hungaroring. Congratulations, and how does that feel?
Thank you. It feels really surreal, to be honest. Yeah, amazing feeling as well. Yeah. Wow. It all goes by so quickly.
Well, I mean, at the front of the field, we were interested to see how you'd soak up the pressure from Hamir Hosseini and also the rest of the grid, and you never looked like you put a wheel wrong. How straightforward was it from your point of view?
To be honest, relatively straightforward, but like, I don't know, when you go into these events, like, your mind just goes to focus at another level, and yeah, it's just, yeah, I mean, the pressure was crazy, but I'm glad I performed under it.
You performed great, and we saw you picture in picture a little while on track, and it looked like you were quite stiff behind the wheel and felt like you were kind of like just really focusing on what you were doing. How easy or hard is it as a driver to just be natural and comfortable and not think too much about what this means to be leading and the challenge that's coming from behind?
It's really, really difficult. Like, your mind trails, like, and you have to kind of stop yourself and just focus on driving. But yeah, I mean, like, it probably looked like stiff on my side because I was having to look after the tires so much. Like,
yeah,
the tires were just dead after like 40 minutes usually, but yeah, they stayed alive, and I was shocked by the pace that I had at the end because of it.
And a big thing for your victory, I think, was during the pit stop window, where you made a couple of seconds on Amir, which gave you a bit of a breathing space. What was the strategy going into that one? Did you always intend to do something different to Amir? No,
I intended to just pit as late as possible, but I saw the train of like lapped cars up ahead, and it was kind of split second. And yeah, I think it was a big turning point because Amir was arguably faster, but after I had that gap, it was really comfortable.
Now, the Porsche is a car that people either love or loathe when it comes to racing in GT3. And you've shown some great pace. Have you unlocked something in this car to get you in this position to take what was a relatively comfortable victory at the checkered flag? Where did this pace come from?
I mean, before I'd had a lot of uni commitments and stuff, but in the past like 2 or 3 weeks, I've really been putting in the time and improving, and yeah, it's safe to say it's paid off. Yeah, just feeling really comfortable in the car.
Well, it's paid off fantastically, and the last round of the season is at Monza on August the 3rd, so are we going to see Jordan Grant-Smith in the Race Anywhere SimSport 120 Porsche at the front of the field in Italy as well?
Hopefully, but it depends on the weather, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, just quickly, I'd like to give a big shout out to Race Anywhere SimSport and my twin brother Lewis, my biggest supporter. So yeah, thank you.
Well, Jordan, you deserve all the credit and all the celebrations tonight. That was a tremendous drive and a massive well done from us. Very, very impressed.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Jordan Grant-Smith, race winner at the Hungaroring here in Mobileye GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship. And David, can you imagine doing that and then just being so cool and relaxed and chill afterwards?
It is very, very impressive, isn't it? And Jordan Grant-Smith certainly is the Hungaroring expert, with a win in the American Championship there last year and a win this evening in the European. But let's quickly turn our attention to silver as well, Paul, because we had a great drive there by Robbie Stapleford, didn't we?
We did indeed. Robbie Stapleford, congratulations. A fantastic drive in the overall race and also class victory. Well done. How are you feeling?
Cheers, Paul. Yeah, it's a bit mixed. It was a good drive after the first lap. Don't really know what happened. I'll have to look back at the start, but yeah, other than that, it was a good drive. Got the pit stop sorted. Pitted early to try and jump everyone, but other than that, I'm really happy. It's not the first win I wanted to get, but happy overall.
Take my advice, don't look back at the start, it will give you nightmares. But from your perspective, we saw you on screen quite a bit and the car looked really good, you looked really confident and pulling off some great manoeuvres. What's it like when you've got everything at your fingertips and you're in full command of everything as a driver? It must be a tremendous feeling.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. We put no end of practice into this to make the setup as good as we can, making sure we know every bit of tarmac pretty much on the track. So once the race comes, it's really good to finally just get it all, everything you've practiced, get it out. So.
And you're obviously driving in the silver class, but very much at the sharp end of the overall as well. How do you balance the desire to get a good result in the overall race, but also consolidate your position relative to your stablemate, your classmates in silver?
Just pretty much get the best out of the car I can, and if it's winning silver or winning pro or winning the overall, when that's the best we can do. I just try and get the most out of the car and see where it ends up in overall pack and see how far it goes.
Now, we've just spoken to Jordan Grant-Smith, who won the overall race, and we've talked about pit stop strategy, which has been very important on a track like the Hungaroring. Do you discuss this with your team during the race, when you're going to stop and where that'll filter you back out onto the racetrack, or is it kind of just a preset plan and barring something going bonkers, you stick to it?
Pretty much know what we're doing. We try and aim for when I come out, I'm not in much traffic, and pretty much we stick to that unless something really bad happens in the race or certain people don't pit or stuff like that. But pretty much we know what we're doing. We just try and get the best position. As soon as I pit, I'm in no traffic and I can then jump, undercut anybody who's in front of me on trying to get by.
So, I suppose last question for me is, we go to Monza on August the 3rd. You've taken your first silver class victory of the season. Does this mean we're going to see you again at the sharp end of Monza? How confident and comfortable are you feeling to end the year in style?
Definitely got more confident after getting the first win. It was only a matter of time, really. I got close to it as Anne thought. Monza's a really good track for the BMW, and I quite like it. So as long as I don't run out of fuel in qualifying, I should be alright.
Well, Robbie, well done to you and to all of the team. Congratulations from us. That was a great drive, and more importantly, as a commentator, one that we thoroughly enjoyed watching. So go and do whatever it is you do to celebrate, and congratulations again on your first victory.
Cheers.
Brilliant stuff, and that's Robbie Stapleford, who won the silver class of this race and pretty much showed himself as somebody that's more than capable, David, of winning the overall thing as well, finishing fourth.
Yeah, all he needs now is for the championship to start again, in a way, doesn't he? Because he's kind of running out of rounds. That's the downside to this, that there just aren't that many rounds of the championship. And again, we come back to the point, it is so important to score points and to keep on scoring. So yeah, that's the frustration. But of course, he wants to go out on a high. He can do that in the final round, but he can also think ahead to that on the basis that that was a very, very impressive drive in this fourth round of the championship.
Well, we see it on screen. It's Monza's 3rd of August for the next race, which should be the most exciting thing, but I've just found out that Robbie has been given a post-race stop-and-go 10, which is about basically 40 seconds penalty, which allows Kieran Pendergrast into the winner's circle in the silver class. So drama, even when the checkered flag falls. So everybody at home, Monza, August the 3rd. If you like this, I have a feeling Monza's going to be even better still. So from everybody here behind the scenes of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship, our sincerest thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on August 3rd. Thanks for tuning in, take care, and good night.